Okay, so hello, good day to everyone. So we will be continuing our discussion in programming fundamentals using Java language. so we will tackle now, our topic for today will be about operators in Java and the different operators used and how they are implemented in the program or in when you code operators. So there are four types of operators. We do have arithmetic operators, relational operators, logical, and conditional operators. Now, for the arithmetic operators, these are operators used for mathematical operations such as sum or getting the sum or addition. So the operator is plus sign. So this is how you use it. Variable 1 plus variable 2. So you will add up those two values. For the operator, for the multiplication, we do have the operator asterisk. So you use it just like in mathematics. And then for division, we use forward slash. For the difference or subtraction, you will use the minus sign. And then we do have the modulo here, the modulo sign. This will compute the remainder of dividing one value to another value. Okay, so we will discuss that later. Okay, so this is just a sample program of arithmetic operators. So let's say, for example, our program will create a program that will compute the sum of two numbers. Let's say the two numbers are 15 and 30. Okay, so note, use variables. Okay, so let's say, for example, that is our our practice exercise 1. We'll create a program that will compute the sum of two numbers 15 and 30. So we'll be creating a new project here. I'll just name it as operator 1. Okay. So I'll name it as practice exercise 1. Okay. I'll just delete those. Those are just comments. Okay, so we'll start our code here. So since we do need to compute the sum of two numbers and we need to use variables, so we need to declare two numbers or using a variable called num1. It's for our num1 will be the 15 and for num2 will be the 30. And we need to declare sum that will store the value of the sum. Okay, so we do have three variables here. We do have the num1 and num2 and sum. And then we will get the sum. Sum is equal to num1 plus num2. Okay, so this is how you use the operator. Okay, and then the result of the adding the two values will be stored to our variable sum, and then we can now use sum for displaying the output. So system.out.println. So let's first display the values of the two numbers. The numbers are, so we'll display num1. So don't forget when you combine a text and a variable which is an integer, you just need a plus sign. Okay, after the quote. So the numbers are, then you close the quote, then you include a plus sign, which means to concat the next object, which is num1. So since num1 is an integer, it will be automatically converted to string when you combine it with a string literal. So as you notice, the numbers are is a string literal because it is enclosed with a double quote. When you combine other objects with it, it will be automatically convert to string. However, in our num1, wala naman tayong ginawang any operators for num1 or any operations or manipulations of the value. It will just copy whatever stored in num1, which is basically 15, and convert it to string. 15 gihapon siya. And then let's put end, let's put space, and plus num2. Then let's put a period para bongga. Yan. So that's how you combine string literals and the value of variable. And then we will now print the value of the sum. So the sum is plus sum. Then let's just put a dot sign. Okay, so let's try to run the program. Okay, the result, the numbers are 15 and 30, and the sum is 45. Let's say, for example, you want to compute the sum and product of two numbers. So we'll need to add in our code for the product. So since we need to add in our code, we'll just put additional values here, variable, which is product, and then another computation of the product is equal to num1 times num2. Do not forget the semicolon, because that's very important, because it will issue an error. Okay, so let's put semicolon, and then let's just copy this one, and then write product. The product is, and then let's just change sum because it's already been displayed to product. Yeah, so let's run the project. Okay, the numbers are 15 and 30. So when you add those two numbers, that you get the sum, which is 45, and when you multiply those two numbers, you get 450. Okay. So we do have, let's try for the division. So let's try let's try first the subtraction. Sub na lang. Diff kasi the result of subtraction is difference. So diff is equal to num1 minus num2. So you subtract num1 with num2. Num1 is 15 and num2 is 30. So we just copy the system.out.println. So the difference is, so plus the diff, which is basically the variable that holds the value of the difference of the two numbers, num1 and num2. And then let's try to run it. Okay, so 15 minus 30 is negative 15. So the difference is negative 15. Now let us try the division. So since this is a division, let's use double in case there will be decimal values. So quotient. The result of the division is called quotient. Okay, let's just use short for quotient. I really don't know if that is correct. So num1 divide num2. Basically, that should result to 0.5. So let's just see if will result to 0.5 because 15 divided 30 is 0.5 supposedly. So the quotient, I don't know if that is correct. Spelling. I'm really sorry. I'm really bad at spelling. Okay, so we declare a double variable for quotient. And we have computed for the quotient by dividing num1 and num2. Okay. And then we print or display the value the quotient is. So let's see. I am correct. Okay, quotient is 0.0. Why 0.0? Because num1 is basically an integer and num2 is basically an integer also. So we need to typecast the data type. When we say typecast, you are converting one data type to another data type within the operations or the mathematical operation. Okay. How you typecast the data type? Supposedly kasi 15 divided 30 is 0.5. So we need to typecast these two into double so that, sorry, mali. Ayaw nyo mag-typecast. Dito ako sure pa. Ayan. Hopefully So you typecast it, the data type. The reason why it resulted to 0.0 because num1 is an integer and num2 is an integer. So when you divide both integers, it will just result to the to its integral part. So when you divide it, so when you divide integer divide integer, it will basically result to integer. So that's what is happening here. So when do you have, let's say, 3 and 4 here, which are integers, basically upon declaring and initializing, it will result to integer. So it will just result to 0. But supposedly, it must result to 0.75. Right? Am I right? Am I wrong? But however, since that is an integer, it will just cut the integral part. This is the integral part, which is 0. It will cut off the floating part. Okay. Ito, i-cut niya yung floating point na part, which is the decimal value, because it is not an integer. And our two variables are integers. So it will just select those in the integral part or yung whole numbers. So yung whole numbers lang ang lagay niya doon sa kung saan siya i-assign. In our case, it will just assign the result of num1 and num2 is 0 because 15 divided 30 is 0.5 and the whole number on that value is 0. And yun nga, what is saved in our code is 0. So that's why we do have what we call as typecasting. You can only typecast values within primitive data types. Okay? So you typecast from integer to double, double to integer, etc. using a variable. So let's try if it will work. Hindi ko pa sure kung mag-work siya. Okay. And hopefully, ayan, nag-work siya. So basically, we typecast it using an open parenthesis, then double close parenthesis, and you put it before the variable. You put this double before the variable num1, and another double before the variable num2, and then whatever the result, it will automatically convert result into a double data type. Then it will just assign the result into or quotient. So that is the reason why we get the correct answer, which is 0.5. Okay, now we do have what we call as remainder. Okay, remainder. Okay, when do remainder, kasi when we do division for those floating point values, we basically result it with meron siyang what do you call this, remainder. So let's say for example we divide 5 with 3. So 5 divide 3. So let's say 5 divide 3. So that is your parang mathematical operation. So when you divide 5 with 3, so you get 1. 1 times 3 is 3. So 5 minus 3 is basically 2. And then since 2 is lesser than 3, so that is basically now our remainder. So 1 remainder 2. Okay? So using the modulo, using this, we will get the remainder of a division. Okay? So, ito yung parang mag-result when you use the what you call this, the operator for modulus. Okay? So, let's go back with our code. We do have int remainder. So, since integer lang kasi yung remainder, di ba? Hindi naman siya floating point value. So, let's just use int remainder. And then, int is equal to num1 modulo num2. So, let's try, no? If, dapat, let's try muna na walang bakit int? Sorry. Remainder is equal to num1 modulo num2. So, let's try muna we didn't typecast the data type. So, we will display it. The remainder is, then the remainder, then the. So, this is our computation. This remainder is equal to num1 modulo num2. Okay, so ang ginawa niya is not correct. Tama pala. Sorry. Kasi yung 15 kasi yung num1 and then yung is 30. So if we will compute it, 15 to 30. So when you divide it, so 0 times 30 is 0. 15 minus 0 is 15. So basically 0 remainder 15. Okay? So that's why the result is 15. So you don't need to typecast when you conduct modulo operation. Okay, so we do have the plus sum, we have the product, we get the difference, we get the quotient, and we do have the remainder. Ayan. Any question? So you just post your questions in our Edmodo page or in my messenger. So let's now proceed. So those are the arithmetic operation. Meron tayong other examples. You can try that one. We'll proceed with increment and decrement operators. So we do have arithmetic. Before we proceed, there is just a guideline here. When an integer and a floating point number are used as operands to a single arithmetic operation, the result is floating point. The integer is implicitly converted to a floating point number before the operation takes place. So kumbaga mag-add ka ng integer na num1 na with the floating point variable na num2, the result of the operation will be a floating point value. Okay? So let's proceed with increment and decrement operators. So we do have we'll just use unary increment and unary decrement operator. Okay, increment and decrement operator increase and decrease a value stored in a number variable by 1. So for example, we do have count is if you just want to add one value. This is very important for counting techniques. Just add one value or deduct one value to the variable itself. So you can just use increment or decrement. So with the expression count is equals to count plus 1, it's equivalent to an increment operator count plus plus. And then these are the different increment and decrement operators. If it is proceeded in a variable, you will increment op by 1 and evaluates the value of the op before it was incremented. If it is before the variable, the plus plus, it will increment op by 1. However, it will evaluate to the value of op after it was incremented. Now, we do have minus minus, which is the decrement. If it is proceeded to the variable, it will decrement op by 1 and evaluates to the value of op, which is a variable, before it was decremented. And if it is preceded in a variable like this, the last one, it will still decrement op by 1 but evaluates to the value of the variable which is op after it was decremented. So that the increment and decrement operators can be placed before or after the operands, just like what we showed here. So when used before an operand, it causes the variable to be incremented or decremented by 1. And then the new value is used in the expression in which it appears. Okay. So let's try. So this is the entire practice exercise 1. Okay. So let's just try to increment the value of num1 and decrement the value of num2. Okay, so you don't need to create another variable for that. Let's say we put a comment here, increment and decrement. Okay, so we will increment num1 and decrement num2. What we're going to use is only the preceded increment in a variable, which is the num plus plus, or this one. This. We will not be using this as it will be confusing to your end. And we will also be using for the decrement this one, which is a proceeding in the variable. And we will not be using the preceding decrement. Okay? So yung proceeding lang sa variable. Yung after ng variable, ang increment or decrement ang gagamitin natin. So, dito, we will increment num1. So, incrementing num1, so we'll just use increment num1 plus plus. We put a open parentheses in order for the interpreter will not be confused with the operator. So, lagyan lang natin ng open and close parentheses within the variable and the operator increment. So, let's see if naging 16 siya. Hindi siya naging 16. Bakit? Ito pala yung ano, parang disadvantage ng ano, ng what you call this, yung proceeding. Kasi ang nangyari, ang ginawa ng interpreter is it displayed the original value of 15 before, kasi nakalagay dito, diba, before it was incremented. So, kung itong ilagay natin dyan, num1 plus in the print ln, what will be printed is the original value, which is 15, which, as you notice it here, 15 ang increment num1, but supposedly it must be 16. So, if you want to do that, you put plus before the num1. So that means it will increment the value after it is incremented, or it will add 1 after it will be incremented. So that's 16. So yun pala yung difference pag within the operation siya. However, if you will do it like this, yung num1 where is before dun sa before siya dito sa system that it print ln, nandito yung num1 so basically dapat maging 16 din itong dito sa system that outprint ln increment num1. Okay, so 16. So you can do both ways. It depends on your method kung anong gusto nyo, yung during ba within ba ng ano ng system that print ln, or before like this num1 So what I do like is before, so just to make sure. So we will decrement num2, so num2 minus. Let's just print that, decrement num2, and we'll just print num2. 16, 29. Okay. So, these are just other examples you can explore. So, always keep expressions containing increment and decrement operators simple and easy to understand, of course. So, we do have the relational operator here. Relational operators compare two values and determines the relationship between those values. So the output of the evaluation is basically boolean, which are true or false, like what we have discussed in our programming fundamentals for our data types. So these are just the operators. You are very familiar with this because this is similar with relational operators in mathematics. It's the same with Java programming. So we do have the greater than, less greater than, equal to, lesser than equal to, and equal to, and not equal to operators. So these are the sample programs. Okay, let's try it here. So relational operators. So let's print is num1 is greater than num2. Okay, so parang nag-ask siya, asking something. So since we are asking is num1 is greater than num2, so we can use an operator for comparing the num1 and num2. Num2 is greater than ba daw ng num2. Num1 is greater than ba daw ng num2. So since relational operator will result to boolean values which is equivalent to true or false. So if we will run that So is num1 is greater than num2? So that is false because num1 is 15 and 30. So let's try another example. Let's see, not equal to. Is num1 is equal to, so wala pala ng is, no? Is num1 greater than num2? Is num1 equal to num2? Okay. So double equal. So don't forget don't forget ha, yung one equal sign, this is for assignment operator. Okay, like what we did here, we are assigning values to the variable sum using the assignment operator equal sign. However, in our double equals, that is basically the operator, equal to operator. Okay, just to, para hindi kayo ma-confuse, yung one equal sign, that is for assignment operator. Yung double equal sign, equal to operator. Okay? When you say assignment operator, you are assignment a value to the variable. When you say equal to operator, you are evaluating the equality of the two variables or the value of the two variables, which will result in a boolean value, true or false. Now in this case, we compare num1 and num2 with a equal to operator, so it will result to either true or false. So in this case, false. Okay, so you can explore on the other relational operators. So these are just other examples. You want to explore, you can. Next will be the logical operators. Logical operators have one or two Boolean operands that yield a Boolean result. So there are 6 logical operators: the logical AND, the Boolean logical AND, the logical OR, the Boolean logical inclusive OR, the Boolean logical inclusive OR, and the logical NOT. Now, in our case, in our programming 1, because we are still in programming 1, we will just use the logical AND, the logical OR, and the logical NOT. Okay? So, hindi na natin i-discuss yung other logical operators. Ito lang tatlo. Okay. So, the basic operation for a logical operation is the variable, the operator, then another variable. Where, okay, variables are constants, and the operator can be the different logical operators, such as, which is the same with arithmetic operations. So, when we construct when we describe logical operators, it is important to produce a truth tables that will be shown in the next slide. So the truth table will show the actual result if you will compare Boolean operators or logical operators, Boolean values with logical operators, and what is the result. Now take note, we'll just be focusing on logical AND, logical OR, and the NOT operator. Okay? Now, this is the truth table for logical operator AND. If one value is, the value of the variable x1 is true, and the next variable is true, so the result is true. Then, if the x1 is true and x2 is false, so remember x1 and x2 are variables which are Boolean data type. So result is false. If x1 is false, x2 is true, the result is still false. And if both variables are false, the result is false. In this case, when you notice the result, it will only return true if all of the statements, Boolean variables or Boolean statements, are true. Okay, so true ang i-result niya. So the basic difference between, hindi na natin i-discuss yan. You can read. Kasi we'll only focus with logical AND. Okay. So this is the example. So you can try on your own coding if you want to try it. This is for the testing AND. Okay, we'll just focus here kasi we'll just be focusing on our logical AND. We do have two variables here, I and j. We have I is 0, j is 10. So boolean test is equals to false, demonstrate and, so test is equals to I is greater than 10, and logical and then j++ is greater than 9. So when you notice, it will just return the original value of j, which is basically 10. So the value of I is j, the value of I is 0, the value of j is 10, and it will result test. So when this one is, it will result to what? It will result to false. And then this one, it will result to 10 is greater than 9, that is result to true. Now, since this is false and this is true, and we put a logical operator and here, comparing the two Boolean expressions, it will result to what? It will result to false. Kasi nga, this is true, this is false, and this is true. And based on our truth table, if one Boolean expression evaluates to false, then the result of the logical AND is false. So, dapat true yung dalawang expression. And then we do have the logical operator for truth table for OR operators. So pag true and true yung second, the Boolean expression, the result is true. If the Boolean expression 1 is true, the Boolean expression 2 is false, the result is true. If the Boolean expression 1 is false, the Boolean expression 2 is true, the result is true. If both Boolean expression results to false, the result of the logical OR operator will be false. Now, in this case, for the truth table of the logical operator OR, it will return true if one of the Boolean expression is true. Now, take note the difference between AND. The AND, dapat lahat ng Boolean expression must be true so that you can get a result of true. Now, in OR, at least isang Boolean expression must evaluate to true so that you get the result of true. So, yun. So, this is just a difference. We'll not discuss the difference of the logical OR and the Boolean logical inclusive OR because we will not be discussing that. Okay. So, this is another example. Kanina, and siya, di ba? So, ito, this was false and this was true. So, since we use a logical OR, so that means the test value will result to true. Kasi may isang true here. Ito, this is true. So, the value of the result is true. So, we'll not be discussing logical exclusive. We'll now proceed to logical NOT. The logical NOT takes in one argument, wherein that argument can be an expression, variable, or constant. Basta, it will just result to Boolean expression value which is true or false. Now, here is the truth table for logical NOT. Okay, so we do have true and false. Kasi you'll just be you will just negate. Kung true siya, pag not operator, it will negate it. So, false. So, pag false siya, it will negate it using the logical not operator. So, ang result niya will be true. So, that is the truth table. Pag the Boolean expression is true, using logical not, the result will be false. If the Boolean expression is false and then using the logical not, the result will be true. So, baliktad siya. So, this is just an example which I have just presented earlier. So we do have another logical operator, which is conditional operator. So conditional operator, this means that it takes three arguments that together form a conditional expression. So we do have one expression, exp1 must be a boolean expression, and then you put a question mark, and then expression 2, okay, is one expression. If it exp2 is on one expression and exp3 as another expression, so it forms, the three forms a conditional expression. So if exp1 is true and exp2 is the value returned, so if it is false, then exp3 is returned. Okay, so ito lang, pag ito daw is true, this will be stored in exp1, and if exp3, example na lang natin. Okay, we do have an int grade is equals to 80, so your program will get the status of the grade. So let's say for example kung pass ba siya or fail. Now the exp1 natin is grade is greater than is equal to 60, so dapat boolean expression yung exp1 natin, and then pass for pag true ang boolean expression 1, which is ito, grade is greater than is equal to 60, and then fail if it is false. Now for this example, 80 kasi siya, no? 80 ang grade. 80 is greater than equal to 60, that is true. So pag true siya, di ba, ang sabi doon, ang exp2 ang ma-return. So pass will be returned in our status. Now if it is, let's say 50 ang grade, 50 is greater than equal to 60, that is basically false. So what will be returned will be the failed string literal. So the failed string literal will be stored in our status. Okay, so before we proceed with operator precedence, let's have an example for logical operator. Simple lang na example. So let's create another project. Create new project, Java application, and then operator 2. That's basically for logical operator. So logical operator example. Okay, parang ano lang, hindi na siya problem. Example lang how to use the logical operator. So let's say for example, we do have int a is equals to 10, int b is equals to 15, int c is equals to 5, and then int d is equals to negative 8. Sample lang, negative 8. Okay. We'll try the first simple one. System.out.println. Ano bang nandito? Test lang niya. Okay. We'll print the values. The numbers are hindi na lang. Huwag na lang. Assuming ma-print, alam nyo na yung values. Okay, let's try to test some expressions using logical operator. Now, if we'll just test A is greater than B, so, meron namang mag-result niyan. So, basically, that is true. False pala, sorry. Kasi 10 is A and then B is 15. Now, if we will change that, if we will add a logical operator for B is lesser than C Okay, it will result to false. Why? Because A is greater than B, that is, ano siya, di ba? Okay, and natin dito, it will just doodle. Okay, eto, pen natin. This one, sorry, bakit ganun? Start. Kasi this one will be result to this will result to, because ano bang na A natin? A is 10 and B is 15. So A is 10 is B is 15. So 10 is greater than B, that is false. Okay? And then ito, B and C. B is 15, C is 5. So B is 15, C is 5. B, 15 is lesser than C. So this is false. So since and siya, so basically, it will result to false. Okay? So we will try the OR. Okay, OR. So try natin. A is equal to lesser than or equal to B, or B is greater than or equal to D. Okay? So A is 10, B is what? 15. So 10 is lesser than equal to B, 15, that is true. Or B is greater than equal to D. B is 15 greater than equal to D, which is negative 8, so that is still true. So it must result to true. So pag ano siya, pag AND siya, try natin kung mag-true pa rin siya. It will still true because both expressions are true. Okay? So let's try another one. Let's say not, mag-not namaya na lang muna. C is equal to B and B is lesser than equal to A. Lesser than na lang, equal to A. So what do you think is the result? That is false. Okay, I want you to analyze bakit naging false siya. And let's try a not equal to. A is not equal to B and it's not equal to C. Result niya is true. Because A is, bakit siya naging true? A is not equal to B is true. Why? Because A is equal to B is false. When you do not, when you do not operator, it will negate the result. So naging true siya. Same with B is not equal to C. So naging true siya. So both values is naging true. And then let's have another complicated one. Or yes. What will be the result? The result is false. Bakit? Let's try this. So our value here is A is greater than B. So A is greater than B, this is false. B is lesser than C, this is lesser than C, this is still false. So the both values is, we have a logical AND which is false. C is equal to B, that is false. And then B is lesser than or equal to A, that is, B is lesser than A rather, that is false. And then both values are false. And we do have a outer OR operator. So ang result niya is basically false. False lahat, so false siya. Okay, so that's why false. Okay, so we'll now proceed with operator precedence.